The Cleveland Cavaliers have officially been eliminated by the Boston Celtics, and there are serious questions about the future of this team. Are the Cavaliers going to retain their existing head coach? Are they going to trade their star player? Is LeBron James going to join the Cleveland Cavaliers? Okay, maybe not so much that one. But before we get to the content, we're on the grind to 1 million subscribers. Make sure you drop like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help us reach that goal. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? At this point, it's very difficult to tell you what was the main reason why the Cleveland Cavaliers lost to the Boston Celtics. It took them 7 games to make it past the up-and-coming Orlando Magic. But even then, the team seemed disjointed at times. I have questions about the fit behind Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. On top of that, you could also look at the fact that this team wasn't necessarily the healthiest during the playoffs. Jarrett Allen was injured since the first round and on. Donovan Mitchell suffered a calf strain and wasn't able to play in Game 4 in the Cleveland Cavaliers matchup versus the Boston Celtics. And for all you know, if Donovan Mitchell had played, it could have been the difference between the Cleveland Cavaliers evening up the series in Game 4 and the Boston Celtics taking a crucial 3-1 series lead. Following the 2021 to 2022 season, the Cleveland Cavaliers were just a few games shy of missing the NBA playoffs, but their future could have never been more promising. Darius Garland was getting better and better, and the Cavaliers wanted to pair him with the star desperately. They clearly hit on their pick of Evan Mobley, and they did a remarkable job that season stockpiling their roster with high-end talent and role players like Jarrett Allen and Caris LeVert. So everyone in the Cleveland Cavaliers front office agreed. All this team was missing was a superstar, a player that could take over in those challenging fourth quarter situations, a player like Donovan Mitchell. So the Cleveland Cavaliers gave up Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, Ochai Agbaji, a 2025, 2027, and 2029 first round pick, in addition to pick swaps in 2026 and 2028. Also, they could get one of the best scorers in the NBA who was just hitting his prime. Immediately, people were applauding this trade. The Cleveland Cavaliers finally got their scorer. They had one of the most exciting young front courts in Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen. And at the time, the Eastern Conference wasn't necessarily looking so strong. So they were favorites to come out of the Eastern Conference. Cavaliers fans haven't been this excited since LeBron James posted that he was returning in 2014. And the best part of all is these first round picks weren't supposed to be so valuable anyways, but nobody could predict what would happen next. After all, if you're consistently going to find yourself in the playoffs, what are the odds that you're going to care about your draft pick that's going to be number 22 or number 25? Well, in year 1 of the Donovan Mitchell era, Donovan Mitchell was as good as advertised. Statistically speaking, this man finished in 6th place for MVP, averaged the most points of his career, shot 39% from 3, and even averaged 1.5 steals per game. The 2022 to 2023 Cleveland Cavaliers finished 4th in the Eastern Conference, but they would surprisingly lose in the first round to the New York Knicks. Immediately, questions were surrounding the Cleveland Cavaliers. The front court of Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley didn't seem capable of defeating the front court of the New York Knicks. There were questions about the fit that these two had with each other, but probably the bigger concern, in my opinion, was how this backcourt's fit was with each other. Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are two completely different players. Donovan Mitchell historically has succeeded in isolation scoring, which is a little bit of a double-edged sword. Isolation scoring can bail out a team from the most difficult situations, assuming that your player is hot. But if your player isn't hot, then you could potentially lose the game because you're living and dying based off of that player's production. And this is how the Boston Celtics have failed to win the NBA Finals over the past couple of years. Too much overdependence on Jason Tatum's isolation scoring, which takes the rest of his teammates out of a rhythm. In the case of Darius Garland, he isn't necessarily an ISO scorer. He's always been more capable of picking apart defenses and attacking their weak spots. And at least before Donovan Mitchell arrived, very capable of getting his teammates involved as well. But this was just year 1 of the Donovan Mitchell experiment, so they decided to run it back for year 2. And once again, the Cleveland Cavaliers Cavaliers finished in 4th place, one game above the 5th place Orlando Magic. And in game 6 of their matchup versus the Orlando Magic, we once again saw the problems with this Cleveland Cavaliers team. Now, granted, Jarrett Allen was injured throughout this series, but in my opinion, the roster makeup of the Cleveland Cavaliers is phenomenal. And whenever Donovan Mitchell is able to drop 50 points in game 6, there's no excuse for your team not being able to succeed, especially if Darius Garland is complementing that with 21 points and 5 assists, and Evan Mobley's complementing that with 3 points and 5 blocks. There's a huge question of what this team should do in order to improve, and there's 2 options at the table for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and you can expect them to either do one of these or both of these. Option A is probably the one that you've been hearing about the most throughout the season, and that's trading Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell's contract expires at the conclusion of next season, so the Cleveland Cavaliers can't afford to lose Donovan Mitchell for nothing, but at the same time, you don't want to hold Donovan Mitchell for so long that you end up trading him for what the Raptors traded Pascal Siakam for, or what the Raptors traded OG Anunoby for. You want to trade Donovan Mitchell at the peak of his value, and you're playing a very risky game if you hold on to him for way too long in his final season. There's multiple teams that would be interested in trading for a player of Donovan Mitchell's caliber. Brian Windhorst even says that teams are preparing crazy trade packages for Donovan Mitchell. Watch.
I don't think that Donovan will ever say, I don't want to be in Cleveland. So the question is, for an organization and an ownership who have lost players like LeBron, if Donovan just simply says, I love it here, and I'm not going to extend, what do? Do they roll the dice with this team again? Or do they say, no way, we got to take action? And that is a huge potential question. I'm trying to walk the line because I don't want anybody to freak out in my hometown of Cleveland. But there are a number of teams that have their offers ready.
Are the Lakers one of them?
They're ready, of course.
The Lakers?
Absolutely.
The Knicks?
I don't think the Knicks are trying to win this Eastern Conference
Understood.
Series, but certainly across the river there in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn.
Teams like the Miami Heat, who are always the front runner for these superstar players, but never end up getting them. Sorry, Miami Heat. The Houston Rockets, the New Orleans Pelicans could potentially trade Brandon Ingram. The Brooklyn Nets should also be interested in Donovan Mitchell's services. And probably the biggest one of all that you've heard multiple times at this point is none other than the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers could trade Rui Hachimura, Jalen Hood-Schifino, Austin Reeves, a 2024 or 2025 first round pick, a 2026 first round pick swap, a 2028 first round pick swap, a 2029 first round pick, a 2030 second round pick, and a 2031 first round pick in order to get Donovan Mitchell. This is an incredible haul for Donovan Mitchell, and it's the ultimate risk from the Los Angeles Lakers, and also it's probably the most valuable haul that you could get for Donovan Mitchell in my opinion. We're not talking about any type of draft pick, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about the Lakers 2029 first round pick. Mind you, LeBron James is turning 40 this year. There's a good chance that the Lakers are going to be rebuilding in 2029 and even 2028. There's never been a time in the LeBron James and Anthony Davis era that the Lakers have had more assets to trade for a superstar player. And if Donovan Mitchell doesn't sign an extension with Cleveland this summer, the Los Angeles Lakers will be one of the most attractive options for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Joe Von Buas said that the Lakers would consider trading Austin Reeves for a bona fide all-star, even though they do not want to trade Austin Reeves. But if there was a scenario in which they would consider trading him, it would have to be for a bona fide all-star. On top of this, they have 3 future first-round picks that they can offer in any trade for Donovan Mitchell. And when you consider the fact that these first-round picks are all going to come at the end of the LeBron era, one would have to assume that these are going to be extremely valuable first-round picks. But let's say they decide to keep Donovan Mitchell, then obviously there's one person that they have to part with, and that individual is JB Bickerstaff. JB Bickerstaff has coached in 8 NBA seasons, and in those 8 NBA seasons, he's made it to the playoffs 3 times. My biggest reason for firing JB Bickerstaff is the fact that he has completely failed to develop Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley is turning into Tyson Chandler Plus, which would be great in 2010, but originally coming out of college, Evan Mobley was praised for his ability to potentially potentially develop into a stretch 4 or a stretch 5, and so far we've seen nothing of the sort. His points per game averages have been stagnating ever since entering the NBA, and the fact that he hasn't been more involved in this offense is a huge red flag. But even furthermore, the fact that there's this over dependence on Donovan Mitchell scoring that takes Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and Max Strus out of the game is another huge red flag in my opinion. This team is more than capable of making it to the second round at a minimum, and as a matter of fact, I think this team is more than capable of making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. But you can make an argument that this roster, at least on paper, is as deep as a team like the Boston Celtics. Max Strus is a capable two-way 3-and-D player. Caris LeVert is a capable scorer. Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell should be one of the best backcourts in the NBA, with Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen being one of the best frontcourts in the NBA. And the fact that JB Bickerstaff hasn't been able to improve that has been a huge red flag. At the end of the day, I could see the Cavaliers holding on to Donovan Mitchell and firing JB Bickerstaff. Who would they hire at that point? Kenny Atkinson could be another incredible addition to this team, considering his track record of taking young rosters and getting the most out of them. But there's a completely different scenario in play here. There's a chance that the Cleveland Cavaliers opt to keep Donovan Mitchell but still make a huge trade. Who would they trade in this instance? Well, the other guard in their backcourt. You remember how I said in the beginning of this video that there is a question about the fit regarding Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland? Well, that's going to be a huge point of emphasis for the Cleveland Cavaliers going into this offseason. And Shams brings this up in his latest article, which he dropped the moment the Cleveland Cavaliers lost to the Boston Celtics, saying there are also questions of fit on the roster to work through, such as whether Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, two non-shooting bigs, can coexist in the same starting unit, and whether Darius Garland can thrive playing alongside Donovan Mitchell as two smaller guards who need the ball. Furthermore, rival executives believe that the Cavaliers will have to seriously evaluate the fit of Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, and ultimately may have to choose one or the other. Should Donovan Mitchell decide to stay long-term, sources briefed on the matter say that Garland's representation, Clutch Sports CEO Rich Paul, would have a conversation with Cavs officials on potentially finding a new home for Darius Garland. The good news for the Cleveland Cavaliers is either one of these situations are just fine so long as they move quickly. Again, if you hold on to your assets for way too long, you can get nothing in return. If you blow up the core of Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, and Donovan Mitchell, you could essentially turn into the next coming of the OKC Thunder. The OKC Thunder started their rebuild in 2019 when they were given an offer that was so good that they were forced to rebuild in the Paul George trade, and then subsequently traded Russell Westbrook as a result of it. And it took them about 6 years to not only have a whole treasure chest of first-round draft picks, but also become one of the top superpowers in the incredibly competitive Western Conference. So either way, these aren't bad options. Players like Jarrett Allen, Caris LeVert, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and Evan Mobley can get you as many, if not more, draft picks than the OKC Thunder were able to get at the time of the Paul George trade. Or moving on from just one of their stars and getting a bunch of assets while you try to build around the other wouldn't be the worst idea either. The problem is trying to find a star that could complement Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell. Either way, you either need to find a head coach that can make Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley work in the front court and Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell work in the backcourt, or you need to move on from Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell. Either way, a huge change needs to be made, and that's despite the Cleveland Cavaliers being very, very close to making it to the top of the Eastern Conference. At the end of the day, I don't think they can go wrong with how they approach this offseason, so long as they get the most value in return if they decide to trade Donovan Mitchell, or if they find the right head coach to coach this team and roll the dice with Donovan Mitchell on the roster. Let me know in the comment section down below if you're a Cavs fan. How do you think they should play this offseason? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.